This is the arc tool, so we'll select a plane, select sketch and select the tool, and by default it's the center point arc tool. So you can see by the icon it wants us to initially select the center of the arc, then select the start point, and then swing the arc through a certain angle and select the final point. So if we lock the center point of the arc to the origin and then pull the radius of the arc out from the initial point, click there, and then it's allowing us to select the angle that the arc swings through. So we'll drop that. So you can see that it gives us a portion of an arc which is centered around that initial point, and we snap that initial point to the origin, so this arc's always going to be centered around the origin. So we'll delete that geometry and move on to the next option. We'll actually skip the middle one for the time being and come back to that, and we'll go straight to the 3-point arc. So the 3-point arc is created by defining the initial end of the arc, the termination of the arc if you like, the other end, and then a third point that defines the curvature. So we'll have a look at that. Drop that initial point, drop it onto the origin just to give us a little bit more control over it, and then you can see in the preview here it's wanting us to define the opposite end of the arc, the position of that. So if we drop that down, and then the third point is just a point in the center or near the center of the arc that defines how much curvature it has. So obviously you can make a very shallow arc like that, or you can really pull that out and make the curvature quite severe. So just two different methods of creating a arc shape. So if we go back to the middle tool there, the tangent arc, this is an arc where you already have existing geometry in the sketch, or maybe in the feature itself, and you want to run this arc off the end of that geometry and make sure that this arc stays tangent to that geometry. So the first thing that we're going to have to do in order to achieve that is put some geometry into this sketch. So we're going to just put a simple line in there, so just drop the line. We'll allow the line to lock itself to horizontal, and I think just to use good practice, we'll fully define the line. So we'll lock this one to 60mm long, and then if we go back to the arc tool and select that initial point as the end of this line, you can see that as it gives me the preview here, the end of our arc, the initial start point, always remains tangent to that line. So if we drop that in there, when I say tangent, I mean that this arc terminates at a point which is directly vertically either below or above the center of this arc. So the center point, if this was a full circle, this line runs into this line tangentially, and it always will because it's put the relation in there, so we can't make it not be tangential. Doesn't matter what we do with the other end or with the curvature, it'll always be tangential to this other piece of geometry. And of course that piece of geometry doesn't have to be a straight line, that in itself could be an arc as well. So if we put an initial arc in there, lock that down, we'll just lock it down quickly now. So put a horizontal relationship in there, and then we'll put a distance relationship in just to help us lock that down. And then one last piece of the puzzle, which is how much curvature does this have. We'll lock that down as well. So we've got this initial piece of geometry, and we want to create a tangential arc off the end of this arc. So you can see it allows us to do that quite easily as well, and it's put the tangential relationship in there. So that can be quite a useful tool if you want to run the arc that you're sketching off from some existing geometry